Hey, today I'm going to be sharing why I chose to have a VBAC after cesarean. And I'm going to share it from the space of I've tried to have a vaginal birth 3 times now. With my first, I expected to have a vaginal birth. With my second, I tried for a VBAC and ended up in another C-section. And with my third, I had planned a home birth, free birth, and I had my first vaginal birth after 2 cesareans with a special scar and a 10-pound baby with no vaginal tearing. And so I feel like I've had a lot of different birth experiences now. And I'm going to share a little bit about why I chose to have a vaginal birth. A lot of people assume that, especially in the medical health system, when I went into my hospital appointments for my VBAC, every single appointment, even though I had it written in my book, every appointment I'd gone through, I assumed that they would read the book. That was what they were supposed to do. I'd actually printed off the guidelines, and one of the things they were supposed to do with this book that I had from Queensland Health was read the client notes, the patient notes before I came in for my appointment. And because I didn't have continuity of care, I was having a random doctor come every time for my appointments, and they'd just sit in the chair and say, "Hey, so you're having a repeat cesarean?" And I would say, it would actually trigger me. I would say, "No, I'm having a VBAC." And the first thing they would say is, "Do you know the risks of rupture?" And it's like, well, if you read the book and do your job, you'll actually know that I've had this conversation many times. And so I'd rattle off the risks of rupture, I suppose, to show them that I'm educated, but also because I did know my stuff. I was educated. I wanted them to see me as a reasonable woman who was educated and knew what was happening. And I guess I had hope that if I showed them that I was somebody who was invested and cared about this journey, that they would look at me and they would be invested as well. But unfortunately, I fought and I fought that one a lot, trying to get connection with people, but it was very hard in that hospital system for me because I didn't have that continuity of care. And I'm not sure whether they actually cared, because they probably saw about 20 to 30 people or women in the day doing the same thing, not sure if they're going to be in their birth. And maybe they were just doing their rotations to get themselves, maybe they didn't even want to be in obstetrics. Maybe they were just doing their time to get themselves to a different area. I've heard that obstetrics is one of the lowest areas on the surgical food chain. So if you want to be a surgeon, if you can't get where you want to be because your levels are not high enough, a lot of people end up in obstetrics and then work themselves up. And I definitely had the experience that some of these doctors they're not passionate. They're not excited. You're having a baby. You want them to be a little bit excited. And I remember even asking one of the doctors, "Why are you here?" Because he was laying back on his chair, throwing up a pen in the air. Like, I'm in a consultation with him. He's throwing up a pen up in the air. And I'm like, "Why are you here? Like, do you even care about women giving birth? Do you even care about this job?" Like, he was just so blasé and like just another day in the office. So I guess that doesn't have anything to do with the reason why I wanted to have a vaginal birth, but the reason why, even after all of those experiences, I still was pushing through to have this vaginal birth, right? Because inside my heart, I didn't feel whole. I didn't feel like I'd done the very thing that I thought as a woman I would be doing. And I'm not saying any woman who chooses a C-section or any woman who's had a C-section, I'm not making any judgments or calls about them, right? Because every woman should be able to choose how she births, and every woman should get the opportunity to choose, right? But it shouldn't be a fight for women to choose to birth vaginally. It should never be a fight for women to choose vaginally. Women should never be made to feel like they're the outlier for choosing to have a baby out of their vagina. And I want to normalize that vaginal birth is normal. It is a normal thing, right? My body is designed to give birth. And I'm not saying that everybody's bodies are perfect. Some people are born with things that are not right, or things that are, in different positions, or things that we can't do, right? And so that's why having surgeries and interventions and things like that are helpful, because the human body isn't designed perfectly. It is designed in a way that for majority of us, birth will work most of the time, right? And if we're in an environment where we're being supported, it's going to work higher than if we're in an environment where it doesn't, where we're not supported, where we're not believed, where we're not trusted. And so for me, all the women in my lineage had given birth vaginally. All of my friends had given birth vaginally. I just thought it was a very normal thing to do. And I didn't even know why we have to. I heard recently another doula was sharing something that happened with one of her clients, and her client was going for a VBAC, and she was asked to write on a piece of paper or on a form the reasons why she wanted to have a VBAC. And I just think it's plus ridiculous that women are being asked to explain why we want to give birth in a way that we're designed and biologically designed and created to do. Like, it's ridiculous that we have to explain ourselves to have a baby out of our vagina, which is how we're born to give birth. I just want to make it very clear that I think it's cuckoo in society that the only extra risk factor that we really have that is of any consequence that other women, will have, like, we will have a uterine rupture. We've got the risk of a uterine rupture, and we have the risk of placenta accretion. So those are the two risks that we have that somebody who hasn't had a C-section does not have. So a woman who's having a vaginal birth, right? Like, why are we asking why is it not the norm that we're just assuming that every woman who's had a cesarean is going to be supported to have a vaginal birth? But it's the opposite way. It's the opposite. So here in Australia, I know in the USA and the UK, women are just not supported to have vaginal births. And that's why our VBAC rate here in Australia is 12%. So that means that only 12% of women who are birthing in Australia, in the USA, it's around about 10 to 12%, depending. That's the VBAC overall rate. So that means that only 12% of us on the highest scale are going on to have vaginal births. And it's because of experiences like mine where women are going into the hospital system with their care provider and their care provider's saying, oh, you're having a repeat. You're having a repeat. And then at every appointment, well, this is my lived experience and the experience of a lot of women I've supported, is that they're going into appointments and they're told all the risks of a VBAC, all the risks of if you choose to have a baby out of your vagina, this is what will happen. And it's told in a way that it will happen, not in the way of, actually, your uterine rupture risk is 0.22%, which means out of every X amount of births, it will happen. And in every X amount of births that it does happen, this is the catastrophic event. It is so rare that I hear a story from a woman where she's had that conversation with a care provider. Usually the conversation goes a little something like this. Well, you're having a VBAC, so there's a rupture risk. So what we should do is we should induce you, which increases your rupture risk by double. But we don't share that when we're asking you to be induced, and decreases your chance at having a vaginal birth. It actually increases your chance of having a C-section, but we don't discuss that during that session because we want to manage your birth, because we want to feel comfortable and safe doing that, because we want to worry about staff rosters and when I'm working and all of these sorts of things. And they just don't discuss that with you at the appointment. Now, for majority of women, that's the conversations that they're having. I know that there's outliers out there. There are amazing providers out there. I follow some of the providers. I'm in connection. I've interviewed some of them, and I'm just like, why are you so different to all of your colleagues? And, they've got some really interesting things to say about that. And them themselves feel like outliers because they're doing this thing that's like not normal in their area of expertise. And so it is a very challenging thing sometimes to have a VBAC. And I don't want to say it's an easy thing to do, especially if you're birthing in a hospital. This is why with my third baby, I chose to have a home birth, because I didn't want to have to fight for my right to birth a baby out of my vagina. I knew that I couldn't, like, if I went to the public system, I'd just have that non-continuity of care. I'd have to keep having conversations with people. Plus, I didn't trust that they were people that I could feel safe with. I wanted to go somewhere where, like, the type of birth I wanted to have was supported. And I looked at private options with an obstetrician, but I just didn't feel that that was my best and safest option. So I don't think that the pathway that I chose is right for everybody. Obviously, I'm in a, I am who I am. I've got my own lived experiences, and we all have our personalities and situations going on. But I do think that I want to be honest about the fact that giving birth in a hospital can be very challenging, especially when you're not supported, especially when you don't have the right birth team around you to support you, especially when you don't have education and knowledge, because knowledge is power. And when you're birthing in a place that doesn't support that, if you're in a birth space where they've got a high VBAC rate, well, you've got a much higher chance of having that VBAC than birthing in a place where they've only got 20% VBAC rates. You know what I mean? Like it's really telling of where you're birthing. So for me, it was just this innate calling that I just felt was, right for me. I just had this thing inside me. And, my husband didn't get it with my second. He was, we'd had conversations, and he, sometimes he'd say, I just have a C-section. I was like, well, yeah, easy for you to say that you'll just have a C-section, because you don't just have to have a C-section. You're never going to have a C-section. And if you were in my situation, you probably wouldn't actually say that or think that or believe that, because you have hormones. Like, as women, we have hormones, and we have things inside us that are telling us, preparing us. Like when you're pregnant, your body's preparing you for birth. So you're getting signals and messages a lot of the time, because everything's opening up and the blood's flowing in certain areas, because you're getting ready to do this thing, right? And so it is supposed to feel like you're about to do this thing, because everything in your body is designed to support that process. Your baby thinks it's going to be born vaginally. Like, it's getting prepared and ready. And there are so many benefits to being born vaginally, like vaginal, like all the little gooiness that they get when they come through. That's why with cesareans now there's vaginal seeding. Their heads get molded and, come through. They have better respiratory outcomes long term and short term for babies born through C-section. Women have higher bonding rates, higher breastfeeding rates. I'm not saying that you can't have any of these things, right, if you have a C-section, because I'm acutely aware that women who have C-sections often think, well, I'm not going to breastfeed, I'm not going to bond with my baby. It decreases the chance of those things, right? But there's still a good chance that you're going to have those things. I just want to be very clear with people, because sometimes the language that's used in the community makes women feel like, oh, well, that's it, I'm never going to bond with my child, or I'm never going to breastfeed. And for me, I bonded with my child the night of my C-section, once the drugs wore off, I suppose, and I'd actually come back into my body. I was a fierce protector of my child, and I never had troubles bonding with her. And I know I have friends who have had troubles after a vaginal birth. So it's not just about that, but it does increase and decrease depending on how you give birth and that sort of thing. And it is important to talk about those things. But I just want you to know, you shouldn't have to fight to birth vaginally. And you shouldn't have to write an assignment to tell people why you want to give birth out of your vagina. And in fact, we should be looking at these people when they say things like that to us and think, like, are you for real? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you think that this is normal? Because actually you're the problem. I'm not the problem. I just want to give birth out of my vagina. Yeah. If you're feeling anything like this, please do comment in below, because I know that us VBAC women, we're definitely in a category of our own and often feeling a bit isolated and alone through this process, which is why I have created a VBAC community, a village, for you to come and get support in a community of women who totally get it. I'll leave the link for that below, and also my VBAC starter kit to get you started on your VBAC journey as well. I am so grateful you're here, and I look forward to bringing you another video soon. So much love to you. Bye.